Hello, Amsterdam. Hello. Oh, thank you. It is so very nice to be back. Again, my name is Jason Levine, and for the last 20 minutes, I get to talk to you a little bit about what's new in Creative Suite 6 Production Premium, and start off by showing you a totally new application. And then we'll spend the first 20 minutes in this new application and a bit of Premiere Pro, and when I come back later, I'll take you through a bit more of Premiere, a bit of After Effects, another new application, Adobe SpeedGrade, and then a bit of Media Encoder to tie it all together. So, to get right to it, when we start in Adobe Prelude, this is a new tool that we designed to be an ingest, logging, and rough cutting tool. So while for the long time now we've told you about using file formats natively and going directly from the camera to the timeline, in fact, I myself in this very theater 1 year ago told you that you could shoot footage on your camera and go directly to the timeline. And that is still true. But what we found more often than not, and actually through the help of many of our broadcast partners, many of whom are located here in the Netherlands, it's really more functional, more useful, saves a lot of time and frustration if you can review your footage, tag your footage, add metadata to your footage, and then build a rough cut before you get to the editing application. And we never really had a solution for that. So we listened, and we developed Adobe Prelude. And this is going to show off a couple of new features, which you'll also see inside of Premiere Pro. First and foremost, you'll notice when I am in the ingest dialog, you have a familiar media browser here. And again, this functions just like the media browser that you have inside of Premiere Pro. And then we have something new, which you'll see here on top of our thumbnails, called Hover Scrub, which effectively allows you to move your mouse over your clips here and very quickly see what content is inside of those clips. But as I look at these clips, these are video thumbnails, right? 16 by thumbnails. Thumbnails, they are called because they are the size of a thumbnail. But we said, no. Why should video be the size of a thumbnail just because it's called a thumbnail? Stupid. So, now we allow you to resize those larger than a thumbnail. Woo, yes. Especially for the visually impaired. That's very useful. Okay, thank you. I knew I couldn't see anything. They looked very small. So now you have video that is larger than a thumbnail. Now, what you can also do is you can click inside of these clips, and new to Adobe Prelude and Premiere Pro CS6, we have an entirely redesigned keyboard-driven workflow using standard keyboard shortcuts, so I can simply JKL my way through this play, stop, review. Okay, and I can find the clips that I want, and then when I'm ready, I can select my clips, let's make these a bit smaller, and come over to my transfer options, where I can simply transfer them into the Prelude interface and begin adding metadata, which we'll talk about in a moment, or I can perform another very common, very necessary step that really we didn't have a great solution for in the past, and that is quite simply the ability to transcode. Because as you are capturing footage on all different kinds of cameras, proper video cameras, DSLR cameras, iPhones, iPads, mobile devices, and then of course all of your professional cameras, Red and Airy and Phantom, they're all different formats. And yes, Premiere Pro can read all of those formats natively, right from the camera to the timeline. But that doesn't mean that that isn't frustrating to deal with all of these different formats, especially if you're moving your content, your work, to other people outside of your production environment. Another very common scenario, perhaps in the cloud. So, we allow you to transcode. And of course, you can transcode to all of the popular formats here. You'll see things like H.264 if you're building reference files, DPX sequences, DPX, of course, which are native and play in real time in Premiere Pro and in Adobe SpeedGrade, which you'll see momentarily. Obviously, all of your broadcast formats, MXF, OP1A, P2, QuickTime. Again, if you have or have the need to transcode to ProRes and you're on the Mac, if you have Final Cut installed on the same system as Premiere Pro, you'll have all of the ProRes codecs available to you. We are native with ProRes too. We just can't give it to you. If you don't have Final Cut, don't want to spend that, 49 euros, buy Compressor. Now you have all the ProRes codecs. And you can import ProRes on the PC. If you're an Avid user and you have Avid on the same system on your Mac or PC, we will allow you to transcode to DNx HD. to Meridian, to all of their codecs, okay? Making it very simple to move this content and unify the formats of all this content. But what is even more unique about Adobe Prelude is that you have true flexibility in how you ingest this content. Because most applications will say, okay, I have a 10-minute piece of video here. I'm going to ingest all 10 minutes, and then I'll build my rough cut. Hey, I don't want to look at 10 minutes. There's only 10 good seconds in this clip. What if I just came in here and found my 10 good seconds? I can also just scrub this, by the way, and set an in point. Set an out point. Now I have the ability within Prelude to do what is known as a partial ingest. Only ingest the media that I need, right? Speeding up the process of rough cutting. And the idea here is that if you're creating video that needs to be deployed quickly, you're cutting for news, you're cutting for broadcast, you're blogging or vlogging, and you simply want to shoot, review quickly, start cutting, and boom. This allows you to do that, removing frustration and not wasting time, right? Yeah. Right, okay, thank you. I'm very excited about that. Yeah. All right, so partial ingest, full ingest. I made the joke yesterday. We were at Multimania in Kortrijk, and I said, yes, a lot of students there. And I said, yes, when I was in university, we would ingest all different kinds of things. But today, I ingest video. So we ingest the video that we want. I can check all of my clips here. We're not going to transcode these. And it brings me into the Prelude interface. By the way, all of your ingesting can also happen in the background, which means, of course, that you can do other things. So background ingest, background partial ingest. And quite simply, when you're in Prelude, it's a very simple interface. You have your monitor panel, your project panel, just like Premiere, a marker inspector panel. This is where you will add and effectively see the metadata that you type. And then you have marker types. We have 6 different supported marker types: subclip, comment, flash cue points, if you're tying any of this video content to events in Flash Pro, web links, chapter markers. Who's still burning DVDs or Blu-rays out here? DVDs or Blu-rays, okay. So this allows you, at the earliest point in the process, to add default chapter markers, if you want, okay? And then also speech transcription markers for using speech to text in Premiere. So again, you can select your clips, and now we're going to begin the process of logging. Logging is simply adding metadata, adding text, adding information that will help you search on this media when you build the actual end result cut. I would have said final cut, but that would be weird. So, yeah. So anyway, you can do this while you're reviewing your footage. It all happens in real time, and it is also a keyboard-driven workflow. All right. So you'll notice all of these markers have numbers next to them, indicating that you can use those numbers to begin adding metadata. Now, we've talked about this for years now. Why metadata? Why does this matter? Well, it's the same as adding all the EXIF data and additional metadata to your images before you export or process them. It's really the same thing, and now it's becoming more relevant because if you think about interviews, think about documentary-style film and capture. This allows you to film an interview, and while you're reviewing the content, before you begin editing, you can add markers, comments, time-coded comments about who is saying what in that particular scene. It just makes life easy, removing the frustration from editing later on. So again, I can use my keyboard shortcuts. Turn this down. I'm going to begin a comment marker, shortcut key number 2. This is going to be take 1 of yellow driver.
Well, to break the world record today, yellow driver has to jump over
the world record.
Now to put that into
going to Alt
like
O to end that one.
Building, and then
going to start another one. Launching into football
we'll be using the same
field.
Vehicle, but
Alt O to get out of that one. Enter and stop. Okay. So what you can see down below is that I've added a series of markers, okay, indicating where the speech begins. Now again, if I want to readjust where these begin, I can simply drag the edge, or I can grab my hot text up here and adjust it there. Okay? You select the marker that you want. This happens to be a subclip marker. The subclip marker indicating that that's the good portion of the take that I'm going to use in my rough cut. You can do this over and over, create all of these non-destructive markers, and then you can begin the process of building a rough cut. You can create the rough cut here, you can create the rough cut with this button here, or in case you forget those two, you can create it here. I'll choose this one, and we'll call this Amsterdam RC, stick it on the desktop. Double-click, and now I can drag my subclips directly into my timeline and review my very rough cut. Again, this is the rough cut, right? And now I can send this off to be edited. How can I do that? Well, naturally, you would expect that we would have a feature called Send to Premiere Pro. Now, Send to is very specific. I will come back to this in the second half today. We've added a lot of Send to functionality in CS6. But more importantly, what if you're not sending it to Premiere? How dare you? No, because you might not be. Now, a quick show of hands, my friends. How many of you are not editing daily in Premiere? Show me. Yes, yes, be proud. Yes! You know why? Because we realize that you're just not going to move to Premiere. Yes, there are many benefits, and we hope, of course, that you do download and start editing in Premiere Pro CS6, available today as part of the Creative Cloud. But we realize it doesn't happen like that necessarily. And you know what? Also, as part of Creative Cloud, you can use Adobe Prelude. And if you want to use Adobe Prelude and get all of that metadata and subclipping and cool partial ingest capability, rather than send to Premiere Pro, you can choose to export, you can give it a name, and you can say, prep this content for Final Cut Pro XML. Woo, yes, don't be shy, that's right. Clapping. Yes. You know why? Thank you. It's not over yet. All right. Making it easy. Removing frustrations from editing. Editing on another platform, editing within Creative Suite. We don't really care. We just want to remove the frustrations from editing. And once you see how all of this integrates within the suite and even externally, that's what makes you want to embrace these applications, right? Smoother workflow, better workflow. It sounds like marketing and sales, and it is. You've seen me here before. Yeah. But it's true. Okay? So, in our case, we will, of course, send it to Premiere Pro, and we will bounce over to Premiere. But before we do that, I get to show you the favorite part of my whole demonstration, and that is this slide right here. This is the Premiere Pro of the past. This is 5.5, the Premiere that we have lived with for many years. And when you look at the interface of Premiere Pro CS 5.5, you're going to notice that for a video application, there's actually one thing that it's kind of lacking. Video. There's a lot of gray and a lot of text and a lot of buttons and a lot of yellow for some reason. Buttons in the source monitor. We have 1, 2, 6, 12, 23 buttons in the source monitor. And a lot of gray space. Now, you may use all of those. Most of you probably don't. It's a lot of buttons. And then, timecode. We have timecode here. We have timecode here. We have timecode here. We have timecode here and here in yellow and white in case your left eye didn't see it, your right eye will see it over there. 2 colors. Maybe they were going for a 3D blue-red thing, I don't know. Timecode is important. That's a lot of timecode. It's a lot of visual clutter, a lot of visual noise. So, much like the newly redesigned interface in Photoshop, we tried to do one very simple thing in Premiere Pro CS6, put video front and center, remove the frustrations by removing the clutter, removing the noise, doing a global noise reduction of the user interface. So, this was CS 5.5. This is CS6. And it has been legally approved by Adobe, Legal. It has been approved by Adobe Legal to actually use the following messaging to describe what you're seeing here. We are now legally allowed to refer to this as our sexy new UI. Sexy new UI. Hey, baby. It's a pretty sexy new UI, isn't it? When do you get off dinner? Okay, you get the idea. Thank you. That's one of my songs, by the way, called Zippity Zap Baby. Okay, so we're okay. In any case, user interface, removing frustration. First thing you'll notice inside the project panel here, again, hover scrubbing, okay, as we showed you before. The ability to go full screen on this panel. The ability, of course, to resize all of your thumbnails larger than a thumbnail if you so desire. But also a lot of indicators to tell you things like, oh, this clip has video and audio, which is being used in sequence 2 and sequence 7 at those timecode locations, right? So more video, the ability to scrub the video, to set in and out points directly in the project panel to begin a new sequence right from the project panel, indicators to tell you where the content is being used, and, even better, the customizable nature of Premiere Pro CS6 allows you to say, maybe you don't like hover scrub. Maybe you find this very irritating because every time you move your mouse over these panels, they just start moving. Does that irritate anybody? Yes, I know it does. Kind of irritates me at times. So guess what? Turn it off. Just turn it off. Remove the frustration. Buttons. Here's about 9, 8, I can't count, something. There's less buttons than before. You want more buttons? Simply drag and drop your buttons. If you want to do a little design with your buttons, you can even add spacers to group them together to make it nicer. Okay? You control what you see. You control the look and feel of the source and monitor panels. Or even better, you want more video and less buttons, maybe you just use JKL in your source monitor. I don't want anything in there. Gone. More video, customizable. JKL shortcuts. Keyboard-driven editing. Also, when we used to go full screen, this is what you would see, and this is great. But again, the client is looking at this, and you've got time code, and you've got buttons, and you've got gray, and they said, I don't want to, what is this? What are you? This should be cinema-like. Full screen should mean full video all the time. So, we created something. I mean, there's buttons here, right? Clients don't want to see buttons. They may push your buttons. Nah. But they don't want to see your buttons. So, forgot what I was doing. We hit play, and now we have the full screen cinema mode. No buttons, no interruption, less clutter, less gray, more video. Very simple, okay? Cinema mode. So again, changing the UI to remove the frustration, changing the way we work in Premiere to allow you to edit faster, okay? So continuing on with that theme, we've also changed the way that we allow you to actually edit, to actually cut your sequences together. Now, if you have a laptop with a numeric keypad, you can use the numeric keypad to do all of your edits with shortcuts, never having to touch a mouse. For instance, you could select clips like we have here, and you'll notice in CS6 that now we have lots of different edit types. Simply by right-clicking on the clip, you can choose those. We could choose a trim in or a trim out like this. You have the ability to select multiple clips as well, multiple, I should say, edit points. Again, if I had my numeric keypad or an external, I could simply type -10 right here, and it would edit all of those back 10 frames. I can also click and drag them to globally make an edit across all 3 of these clips if I wanted to, like that. But you know, as we were talking to broadcasters, as we were talking to different types of editors, the most common thing that they said was, well, that's all great, of course, yes, we need that. But I want to be able to dynamically move around my edit point. When I'm editing, I'm telling a story. And to tell that story properly, I need to be in the story. I need to see it, feel it. So of course, typically you would do this in a trim panel. But now we've redesigned the trim panel. We've redesigned the editing way of using trim by creating dynamic timeline trim. So I can choose my roll edit tool, double-click on the edit point, and now, inside the program monitor, it's not another dialog, it's not another panel or window. I can perform my edits, and I can perform them dynamically. So as you take a look here, you'll see that we have some preset buttons to trim backward or forward, to add transitions. By the way, these are just default frame amounts, -5 frames, -1. You can change these. These are just the default settings. But even cooler, I can take my mouse, or again, you can do this with the keyboard. I'll show you later why I'm using the mouse. And I can simply click, and I can see the ins and the out points of my clip. And you see what's happening right here? If I reach the limit of media as I'm editing back, rolling back, it indicates that to me. If I reach the minimum duration while trimming going forward, it tells me, right? So I know exactly where I am inside of my scene. And then when I let go, if you pay attention right here, the edit point changes. And again, this can all be done with keyboard as well. So you have an amazing amount of flexibility inside the dynamic timeline trim, or you can do all of this outside of that panel if you want, in the classic way, but now all with standardized keyboard shortcuts. Okay? One last thing I'll show you before we go to the break. I'm the only thing standing between you, coffee, and fun times together. Is something that we should have been doing for a long time because it's already been in some of our applications, but now we wanted to make it right, and we finally did. And that really speaks to this next example here, where I have 4 HD clips playing in real time, and I want to color correct across all 4 of those. Now, in CS 5.5 and before, you would have had to have added either 4 color correctors to all those clips. That's fine. That, of course, uses a lot of CPU, and if you don't have one of our standard NVIDIA GPU-accelerated supported cards, it might slow things down. So you could nest all of that into one single sequence, and that's fine too. But if you need to make changes to the individual clips, you have to go back to the original sequence anyway. And once you start nesting, nesting is a wonderful workflow. I do it all the time. But if I didn't have to nest, I wouldn't, right? Because nesting, you have to keep track of these things in your mind. And my mind isn't good at keeping track of those things anymore, or perhaps ever. But now we've made it easier by adding a very standard effect that you know and love from Photoshop and After Effects. It's the ability to actually use adjustment layers. So now I can add an adjustment layer. I can drag it into my available track. I can drag it out for the duration. A new feature of CS6, select the layer or the clip in your timeline. Let's go to our fast color effect here, double-click it, and now it automatically adds that via double-click to the layer or to the selection, rather than drag and drop. We have someone in San Jose who does all these studies about time studies, like how much time it takes to drag something over versus just double-clicking. And they did all of these studies, and they found that it's so much faster to double-click. He sits in a room all day. That's all he does, so give him a break, okay? I believe him. You don't want to upset that man. Okay, so once you do that, now, just like Photoshop, After Effects, it does what you expect. Oh, lovely, groovy. Now I can color correct everything. Perfect. But you know, when we asked our editors, our broadcasters, does this work for you? They said, yes, it does, but really, I would love to be able to do this and see it color correcting in real time. Is that possible? Well, we have something with our Mercury playback engine called NVIDIA GPU acceleration via CUDA. CUDA is the technology. Some HP laptops have these CUDA cards. You can get these external cards for Mac and PC towers, but on the Mac laptops, unfortunately, we didn't really have a solution until now. In CS6, on 2011 or 12 MacBook Pro, 17 inches, with ATI cards, very specific, you can have OpenCL GPU acceleration added. So I click OK, I delete my previews, I wind back, I hit play, I cross my fingers, and now I color correct 4 layers of HD with adjustment layers in real time, and that's really cool. Yeah. Woo! All right. Non-video people are going, huh? Yeah, I know. Trust us, right? It's cool. All right, so my friends, that's all the time we have for this section. Going to take a short break, be on the listen out for the bells and the chimes to bring you back. So much more to talk to you about Creative Suite 6, Creative Cloud. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a few moments. Thank you.